the 2018 Atlanta Press Club Loudermilk Young Debate Series, brought to you from the studios of Georgia Public Broadcasting. This is the race for Public Service Commission District 3.
Welcome. I'm Tom Baxter, a columnist with the Supporter Report. You're watching the Atlanta Press Club Loudermilk Young Debate Series originating from the studios of Georgia Public Broadcasting in Atlanta. This is the debate among candidates for the Public Service Commission District 3. The 3rd district includes Fulton, DeKalb, Rockdale, and Clayton counties. For those of you who are not sure what the Public Service Commissioners do, when you turn on the lights, pick up the phone, and cook dinner, your Public Service Commissioners determine the amount you pay for your electricity, telecommunications, and natural gas. Let's meet the candidates. They are, in alphabetical order, Chuck Eaton, a Republican, is a current member of the Georgia Public Service Commission representing District 3. Ryan Graham is the Libertarian candidate and a project manager in software management. And Lindy Miller, a Democrat, is a business executive and co-founder of a renewable energy company that works to give more energy choices to schools, small businesses, and nonprofits. Now let's meet our panelists. Christy Schwartz is a reporter covering utilities and energy in the Southeast for E&E News. And Ross Terrell is a reporter with Georgia Public Broadcasting. Now let's get started. For rules on today's debate, please visit the Atlanta Press Club website, atlantapressclub.org. To start the debate, each candidate will be asked one question. Christy Schwartz, you get the first question to Ryan Graham.
Hi, Ryan. I was looking at your campaign website, and the issue of transparency and accountability is listed as one of your top 3 issues. There's a fair amount of information that companies are allowed to file with the Georgia Public Service Commission that's under trade secret protection. They argue that it's proprietary. Do you have a plan on how to convince them that more of their information needs to be available to the public?
Yeah, thank you for the question, and thank you, GPB and the Atlanta Press Club, for having us here. To answer your question, I think that all of that proprietary information, as long as there are monopolies in place and that these companies have total control over regions for electricity and other services, they need to be as transparent as possible. So, I mean, I do understand that there is a need for some sort of privacy in certain situations, but we're probably way too far with that. So I want to make sure that the people know exactly what the companies that they're forced to use are doing and what their business practices are.
Okay. Ross Terrell, you may now ask Lindy Miller a question.
Lindy, the Plant Vogtle price tag is north of $25 billion, and it is years away from being completed. And just last week, Georgia Power, Oglethorpe, and the Municipal Electric Authority of Georgia voted to keep this project moving forward. Do you support this, and how do you justify putting so much more money into it when it's already, years behind schedule and doesn't seem to be going anywhere?
Well, thank you for the question, and also thank you to the Atlanta Press Club for having us all here today. This is one of the most important seats in the state. This affects everyday lives, and now we in Georgia have the 3rd highest energy bills in the country. And Plant Vogtle is one of the most expensive infrastructure projects in the history of the United States. Under the chairmanship of the incumbent, my opponent, the project began many years ago, and he has utterly failed to put any incentives in place to make sure that this project is completed on time and on budget. We have a situation here where consumers are bearing risk and cost, and the companies are going to stand to profit in the billions of dollars. This is a situation of privatizing gain and socializing risk. That has to stop. We need to stop the blank check at Vogtle, and the deal that we saw last week agreed by the parties doesn't change the risk we see. It actually places more potential risk on Georgia Power and makes the Public Service Commission more important.
Mr. Eaton, you were referenced in that question. You have 30 seconds to respond if you like.
Sure. Our electric rates are 15% below the national average. And in the last 7 years, the average bill hasn't gone up one dime. And so we've done a great deal to diversify and protect the Georgia Power ratepayers.
Okay, Christy Swartz, please ask another question to Chuck Eaton.
Okay. We've talked in the past about storage, and now some electric companies are looking at ways to adapt their power grids to have distributed technologies for more resiliency. So Georgia Power has to file its long-term energy plan with the PSC next year. What would you want to see in it, and what if they disagree with you?
Well, you know, I've been an advocate for diversity. And so I would like to see all forms of generation in the mix. Natural gas, nuclear, continued with nuclear, and solar and other renewables, and some energy efficiency measures as well. Georgia is now one of the top 10 growing solar states in the country, and I'd like to see us continue that. I think diversity is the key. We've been able to protect the ratepayer. Our bills haven't gone up one dime in the last 7 years. Our rates are well below the national average. And I think we need to continue that. We need to continue making sure that we have competitive rates, not just for our residential ratepayers, but for our manufacturers as well. Georgia is one of the best places to do business. We've attracted 700,000 jobs in the last 7 years, and we need to continue doing that.
Okay, that concludes the first portion of the debate. The candidates will now ask a question to one of their opponents. Each candidate will have 30 seconds to ask the question, 60 seconds to respond, and 30 seconds for a rebuttal. By random selection, Lindy Miller, you may ask the first question to one of your opponents.
Thank you so much, Tom. My question is for the incumbent, for Chuck. You've had 12 years on the commission, and you keep saying our bills are lower than the national average. My team will post on Facebook at Miller for Georgia the data that we actually have on electric bills. Since you began your tenure 12 years ago, our bills, families' bills, have gone up an average of $30 per month. And Atlanta now has the fourth highest energy burden of anywhere in the country. That means people pay more to meet their energy needs than anywhere else. My grandmother always said the definition of insanity is repeating the same thing over and over and expecting different results. Why should Georgians elect you for a third term?
Well, I think what my opponent's referencing is the fact that we live in the hot, humid Southeast. So obviously, people are going to pay more for air conditioning than somebody living in Maine. I can't control the weather. What I can control are the rates. And our rates are 15% below the national average. The average bill hasn't gone up in 7 years, the average homeowner's bill. And so I would encourage anybody to first look at the EIA website. That's a federal website that keeps track of our rates. And obviously I can provide the bill information as well, but it's fairly common knowledge. Again, I can't control the weather. Georgia happens to be in a hot, humid area. I can't control what people pay for their gasoline. I can control our electric rates. And they continue to be competitive, and they've continued to allow us to be one of the best states for attracting businesses in the country, and they're going to go to where the competitive rates are.
You get a 30-second rebuttal.
Yes. The incumbent continues to refer to rates, but the average family and small business owner in Georgia does not pay rates. The average family pays bills. And our electric bills alone are the fourth highest in the country. And again, we will post this information online. Anyone is welcome to check it out. At the same time, our commissioners continue to accept money from special interests instead of listening to the people who pay their bills, and that has to change.
Okay, Chuck Eaton, you may now ask a question of one of your opponents.
Sure. Mr. Graham, as a foster parent of a young child, I've personally seen what the opioid epidemic is doing to our foster system, and another child that's in the Atlanta public schools. We're proud parents of public school children. I'd like for you to expand on some of your statements in the past regarding the legalization of heroin and other drugs and the elimination of our public school system.
I have never said anything about the elimination of our public school system. I don't really understand what this has to do with the Public Service Commission at all. I don't understand why you're even asking this question in regards to the Public Service Commission.
Well, this is important. He's written about it on the internet. He's written about it on Liberty websites. And we don't know a whole lot about him, and it gives you insight into somebody's mind and how they think. And, you know, legalizing all drugs and eliminating public education is a fairly outrageous position to take. And, I don't think we need these positions when it comes to regulating our energy as well.
So, again, I've never made the claim that I want to eliminate public education, ever. In regards to drugs, I've said to legalize and treat it as a health issue, which it is. And then as far as, I mean, you made conflicting statements where you said you can go out and find my writings online. I welcome anyone to go and Google me and find my writings online. I make it clearly apparent. And then you followed up by saying that no one knows about me. So you can find out about me. It's all public. I'm an open book.
Okay, now, Mr. Graham, you get a chance to ask a question.
Commissioner Eaton is who I'm going to ask my question to. While it's illegal to take campaign contributions directly from regulated entities, the Energy and Policy Institute has reported that you have taken over $100,000 in campaign contributions, which account for about 75% of the total. From donors closely associated with regulated entities, such as Troutman Sanders, a law firm that represents Southern Company. At what point does this become a conflict of interest with your duty to ratepayers?
First of all, this Energy Policy Institute is a very left-leaning group, and I haven't really even bothered to look at their website. 6 years ago, when a study was done, they included my father as a utility interest on there. I take my contributions from a variety of interests in the state of Georgia. I've gotten contributions from labor. I've gotten contributions from manufacturers, and so I would say this. I would say if you're concerned about a conflict, I mean, my opponent has a company that would directly benefit from the decisions made at the Public Service Commission, and I just don't know how you would remove yourself from rate cases and from IRPs with this huge conflict. So again, my contributions come from a wide variety of interests. I have a very broad range of support, and I make no apologies for it.
I believe the opponent that you were referring to is Ms. Miller. Is that correct?
Yes.
You have 30 seconds to respond.
Thank you. I am very proud of the solar energy company that myself and my partner co-founded here in Georgia to bring more renewable energy to the state. My opponent, the incumbent, has accepted over $300,000 from entities related to those that he regulates. And when you are in the pockets of special interests, you cannot fight for the public interest. I have been very clear from the very beginning that if elected, I will sell my entire stake in any entity related to the Public Service Commission.
Okay, and now, Mr. Graham, I believe you have 30 seconds.
First off, I'd just like to remind both of my opponents that there is not a single opponent, that I'm also in the race.
I did ask you the question.
Yeah, fair enough. But I'd also like to welcome anyone to go to the ethics website where they report on all of the contributions that will back up what the Energy and Policy Institute has reported. And it's not coming from a variety of sources. It is coming, 70% has come from people who are regulated, and a large majority of that has actually come from people related to Southern Company itself.
Okay, that concludes our second round. For those just joining us, this is the debate between candidates for the Public Service Commission District 3. We will now go back to the panel to ask questions to the candidate of his or her choice until we run out of time. As a point of moderator privilege, I may also ask a question of the candidates, and I'll determine when a rebuttal is appropriate. Ross Terrell, you get the first question in this round.
This question's for Mr. Graham. Next month, construction is expected to start on the 2,000-acre solar plant, which Georgia Power would then buy the energy from. How do you make sure the everyday homeowner and customer benefits from a solar plant of this size? What exactly does benefiting from that look like?
I mean, My whole policy is one of deregulation, and I want to be able to spread out I want to basically crowdsource any kind of solar industry. So I don't want to just give Georgia Power the ability to build those solar plants. I want all Georgians to be able to build as much as they want and sell as much as they can back to the grid. Right now they're limited, and it's highly regulated again. And I think that technology is to a place where individuals could put solar panels on their house and sell a lot back. If a farmer's crops aren't doing well, they should be able to allocate space on their farm for solar panels. And I think that deregulating will actually get the electric mix a lot further towards solar, which I agree with, and I think a lot of Georgians do. Right now, it's at about 2%, and the current commissioners like to pat themselves on the back for that because we are, I think, top 10 in the country for it, but it's still under 2%. And I think Georgians want it to be more than that, and I want to empower them to do that.
Christy Schwartz, it's your turn.
Okay. Ma'am, this question's for you. As you know, the PSC only regulates Georgia Power, but I'm wondering what your thoughts are on whether Georgia needs a statewide energy plan and how you would help work to achieve that when some of the long-term planning now is done in silos.
Thank you for that question. I have heard from thousands of voters as we've worked across the state over the last year, and I think that one of the exceptional things about running for this office is that it's what I like to call the most important seat most people have never heard of. Most people do not know that there is an entity that is helping to shape our energy policy in Georgia. Other states have instituted plans like you're referencing, Christy, and we have fallen very sadly behind in this state. I do believe that a plan like that could come out of the legislature or out of the governor's office, and that the Public Service Commission could play a role in helping to inform and shape that plan along with the utilities. There is an absence of voice from the commissioners statewide, and I believe that's because they are listening to special interests and not to regular people, and people are demanding a clear view of where we're going as a state with respect to energy.
Ross Terrell, you get the next question.
This question is to Mr. Graham and Ms. Miller. Recently, when you talk about Plant Vogtle, we had a group of legislators who wrote a letter to the PSC asking for a cost cap. And right now, we're also in an election year for governor and lieutenant governor. How do you plan on working with people under the Gold Dome if pressure arises for a certain situation, knowing they could very well be representing constituents in your district?
Who would you like to answer the question first?
Doesn't matter.
I think lawmakers showed that they knew that they made a mistake last year when they sunset the actual tariff, the nuclear recovery fee. And I think that signaled that they're ready to work with us to make sure that there are caps. And then this letter that came out from the committee just further goes to show that they're ready to work with us on it. They know that they made a mistake by allowing it in the first place. And they need an easy way to walk it back. And I'm willing to work with them on that to get it walked back. There is a time during the public hearings when a Georgia Power, I think they were reporting on the status, but a Georgia Power representative was laughing. He said he didn't understand what the word cap meant, right? I mean, everybody knows what the word cap means, and it was kind of tongue-in-cheek. And I just think that kind of respect for ratepayer fees, the ratepayer money, it's wrong. It's morally wrong.
Christy Schwartz.
Do I get to answer the question as well?
I'm sorry.
He had asked both of us.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thanks, Tom. So thank you for the question. I think that one of the challenges we've got currently with our current commissioners is they will say things like, the legislature went and put this tax on people's bills, and part of why our bills is so high is because we don't have accountability at the PSC on Plant Vogtle. But not once did you hear Chuck Eaton go to the legislature or stand up in the media and say, this is not right. You should not be burdening working families and small business owners and cities and schools across this state. And the legislature has had the courage, or those 20 legislators have had the courage to stand up and say, if you're going to build a house, you don't go to a contractor and say, take as long as you want, spend as much as you need. You'd only do that if Your neighbors were paying for it, and that's what we've got here with Plant Vogtle. I applaud the legislators who have taken a stand and said no more. They see how it's burdening their constituents, and I believe that it's time we had real leadership on the commission who understood that as well.
Chuck Eaton, you get 30 seconds to respond.
All right, well, the letter was not addressed to us. The irony of the whole thing is that what sparked it was the fact that during the last set of overruns, we didn't allow one dime to go to the Georgia Power ratepayer. It went all to the Southern Company shareholders, $700 million did, and the other parties were upset about that because they didn't have shareholders to put the money off on, and so they were looking to get protections up to the level that we had already done for them.
Christy Schwartz.
This is for you. Your website mentions rural broadband as one of your critical issues. The state legislature is also looking at this issue and, in fact, has a study committee meeting this week. How does the PSC need to work with the legislature to ensure that all stakeholders are at the table?
Sure. Rural broadband is extremely important. As a father of a 11-year-old daughter and a 18-month-old, I realize that schools depend more and more now on the internet for education and learning. And there are many parts of this state that still don't have access to high-speed internet. And at times, not so much now, but in the past, there was a frustration because you would hear certain legislators, one, complain about the lack of rural broadband, and then later not providing funding on it. So I'm quite happy that there is the study committee. We've worked with members on the study committee. I know quite a few of them. As to ways that we can expand rural broadband across the state. If there is a fund, I would hope that they would use the Public Service Commission to administer that fund. We tend to know best when it comes to servicing the rural areas, what it takes to cover those fixed costs and how to put them in bills. So we definitely need to do more when it comes to getting high-speed internet across the entire state of Georgia.
Time for one more question from Ross Terrell.
And this question, I'll go to Mr. Graham. As Christy referenced earlier, your website mentions transparency, and that's often a word that's thrown around a lot in government. So what does transparency for the PSC actually look like? I
mean, I can tell you that transparency has actually kind of turned into education. Going around Georgia, a lot of Georgians don't understand what the PSC does. So I want to make sure that Georgians know more about what's going on at the Public Service Commission. So to me, that means a lot of social media, a lot of talking, a lot of writing articles and getting people to listen to what is going on and drumming up more popular interest in what's going on.
Thank you. That's all the time we have for questions. Each candidate will now have 60 seconds for a closing statement. Ryan Graham, you get the first closing statement.
I wanted to start by actually saying that Chuck Eaton earlier was saying that $700 million was not going to go towards Georgia Power customers, but that leaves $400 million that they are responsible for out of $1.1 billion. And that's not even to say the rest of the $2.3 billion that the other companies have to do. And ratepayers for Georgia Power are not inherently better than ratepayers for the other companies. So what are those people going to do? They're going to pay higher rates. We can't just ignore them. We can't say it didn't raise a penny. $700 million was accounted for and was absorbed by the company. That leaves an awful lot of dollars on the table. So next I wanted to talk about, again, I mentioned this a second ago. Georgians are largely unaware of what is going on at the Georgia Public Service Commission. I think that is a fundamental problem with the system, and I think that it will be trouble to get people to get interested. It's an uphill battle for us. And I think that returning the power to the people, deregulating, gives people more of a voice to make the decisions that are right for them and their families and their loved ones. So I want to deregulate. Thank you.
Time. Lindy Miller, your statement.
Thank you. For the last year, I have been traveling all around the state, listening to thousands of people, and I'll tell you what, families and small business owners are struggling. Folks are worried about their future. There is a lot at stake, and you have a clear choice in this election. With the incumbent, my opponent, you know what you're going to get because you've had it for the last 12 years. The third highest energy bills in the country. Missed opportunities to invest in new technologies and the jobs of the future. This election will have a lasting impact for generations to come. I believe that this seat is not about politics. It is about kitchen table issues that affect every single Georgian. We need to make sure we're putting people in these seats who are listening to regular people and not just special interests. We need to embrace the best ideas for Georgia, and I need your support. The status quo is unacceptable, it's too expensive, and it's time for change. That's why our supporters say, chuck him out. It's Miller time.
And Chuck Eaton, you get the final closing statement.
You know, it's true. I've been on the commission for the last 12 years, and you know exactly what you're going to get from me. What you're going to get is in the last 7 years, your Georgia power bill has not gone up one dime. Our rates are 15% below the national average. We serve as a beacon for manufacturing interests across the state and have attracted more than 700,000 jobs. Our governor has attributed, Governor Deal, who has endorsed me, has attributed our low electric rates as part of that reason. My support is broad and diverse. I'm endorsed by labor, the chamber, the manufacturers, and Governor Deal. And while they are rarely all aligned, the one thing they have in common is they have a desire to grow our economy for the working families of Georgia. And they know I have fought for Georgia and have earned this re-election. Now I ask for your vote. I ask you to vote for Chuck Eaton in this next election. Thank you.
That concludes our debate. We'd like to remind voters that Election Day is Tuesday, November 6th, and early voting begins October 15th. Our thanks to the candidate and to the panel of journalists. I would also like to thank the Atlanta Press Club and Georgia Public Broadcasting for arranging today's debate. For more information on the full schedule of general election debates, please visit atlantapressclub.org.
Thank you.
The debate will be archived there and on Georgia Public Broadcasting's website. I'm Tom Baxter. Thank you for joining us.